Thanks for joining us for CBN News Today. I'm Charlene Aaron.
And I'm Efrem Graham. The director of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention will brief President Obama on the Ebola situation in the U.S. Meanwhile, one man stricken with the disease is fighting for his life. Adil Hurd has this story.
The condition of a Liberian man in Texas is worsening. Thomas Eric Duncan, the first person diagnosed with Ebola in the U.S., is in critical condition at a Dallas hospital. His family says he's unconscious on a ventilator and dialysis after kidney failure. Duncan's girlfriend, who is under quarantine, is unhappy with the care he's receiving.
I don't think Americans, they are doing enough to take him.
Duncan's girlfriend and family are having their temperature taken at least twice a day, while specially trained hazmat crews work to decontaminate Duncan's apartment. Neighbors are worried.
Being here actually scares me. I don't want to get out here.
The CDC is monitoring 9 high-risk patients who came in direct contact with Duncan, while about 40 other people in Dallas considered low risk are being watched, including a homeless man. Also today, a freelance cameraman for NBC News who was infected with the virus while in Liberia is expected to arrive in Nebraska for treatment. Although experts say Ebola is not airborne and can only spread through contact with bodily fluids, U.S. health officials are leaving nothing to chance. CDC workers have been traveling across the country responding to possible cases of Ebola.
Our top priority is the safety of Americans. I remain quite confident we will not have a widespread outbreak.
And Operation Blessing is responding to the situation in Africa by sending American aid workers, multiple chlorine generators, and a shipping container full of critically needed hospital supplies to Liberia. Dale Hurd, CBN News.
An American doctor who survived Ebola was readmitted to a hospital in Massachusetts this weekend. Dr. Richard Sacra was treated at a hospital in Nebraska last month. On Saturday, he was checked back in after complaining of a cough and low-grade fever. Doctors say his symptoms were not related to the Ebola virus he contracted in Liberia while working as a missionary. Still, Sacra remains in isolation as a precaution. He is one of 4 Americans who have been brought to the U.S. after being infected with Ebola since the outbreak began in West Africa. Another is expected to arrive today.
We're learning of more criticism of the president's performance from his former defense secretary, Leon Panetta. We already told you Panetta said it was a mistake the White House didn't make a deal with Iraq's leadership in 2011 to keep U.S. troops in that country. But Panetta also writes in his new book, Worthy Fights, the Obama administration rejected the advice he and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton gave to begin arming Syrian rebels in 2012. He goes on to criticize the president for failing to order military action after Syria used toxic chemicals against its own people.
Republican Senator Kelly Ayotte says Panetta's criticisms are fueling concerns President Obama might not finish the fight against ISIS. Speaking on Fox News Sunday, she said she fears that the president will turn his attention from ISIS threat once the midterm elections are over.
And I think what we have here, Chris, is a problem where the president's foreign policy is being trapped by his campaign rhetoric. And I'm very fearful that as we look at the current military strategy, that it is surrounding the November elections and that he won't have the resolve to follow through with what needs to be done in a sustained effort to destroy ISIS. And we are about to repeat the same thing with regard to Afghanistan, which Secretary Panetta also mentions in his book as well.
Panetta wrote that he publicly advocated for training and security for Iraq's military and stressed that Iraq's stability was not only Iraq's interest, but America's as well.
Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says ISIS is not the only imminent threat the world should be watching. He says the U.S. and its allies must keep an eye on Iran, which poses an even bigger threat.
But if you think ISIS is dangerous and should be defeated, as I do, and I completely support President Obama's effort in leadership in this regard, then think how much more dangerous Iran is. Iran doesn't have 2 million petrodollars a day. It has 100 million petrodollars a day. And it's working on obtaining nuclear weapons. And that would be, I think, a pivot of history. I think it would endanger the future of our common civilization. So that should be defeated, and that should be prevented.
American evangelicals showed their support for Israel this weekend. Former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee and the group Concerned Women for America joined forces to sponsor the Stand with Israel rally on Capitol Hill. Paul Strand brings us that story.
The president of Concerned Women for America explained this rally was birthed when she was in Israel and realized why it's important to support Israel today as it faces enemies who want to wipe it out. She asked herself then if she would have supported Jews during World War II when they also faced the threat of extinction.
If I had been alive during the Holocaust, what would I have done? Would I have been one of those people, one of those Christians who just turned away and turned a blind eye to the evil that was right before me?
Showing support for Israel isn't just taking an altruistic stand, because those here were quick to point out that the enemies who would destroy Israel first are completely ready and dedicated to turning around and destroying America next. Former Republican presidential candidate Mike Huckabee said he believes God will save Israel from destruction. But ISIS, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Iran still want to destroy it, and he warns they wouldn't stop there.
You honestly think that if they were to achieve that they would say, well, that's it, we're done? Israel isn't the ultimate target, we are.
CBN's terrorism analyst Eric Stakelbeck agreed, pointing out that Iran will have intercontinental ballistic missiles by 2015, and it could use those missiles to target America.
Israel is the little Satan, a bump on the road to the great Satan. Us, their words, not mine.
Concerned Women for America wanted to show there are also many young concerned women for Israel. Among them, Raquel Minka, a young Baltimore Jew who, when she heard there'd be an anti-Israel protest in her neighborhood, threw together a counter-rally with hundreds more participants. To her, this is personal.
My grandparents are Holocaust survivors. They fought the fight. My dad is a wounded IDF veteran. He fought the fight. And now I'm doing the same.
Leading conservative writer Bill Kristol says America has to take a stand in the Middle East and fight.
We know what a world without an Israel and with an America that's weak and withdrawn looks like. And that's the world of 1939 or so, 75 years ago. And that's a world that leads to a world war, and that's a world that leads to a Holocaust.
Paul Strand, CBN News, Capitol Hill.
Sunday, hundreds gathered in Jerusalem and millions more around the world to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. The 13th annual Day of Prayer for the Peace of Jerusalem brought both Jews and Christians together to pray in what has grown into a worldwide event. God TV broadcast the prayer meeting to 190 nations.
We're here today because Jerusalem is really a city like no other. And people often don't understand that what happens in and around this city impacts the nations of the world. Everyone who is concerned with the future of our planet needs to be concerned with what happens in Jerusalem and with praying for the peace of Jerusalem, which is the key to peace for all the nations.
Thousands of churches around the world also participated in the prayer meeting that encourages people to follow the command of Psalm 122:6. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. May they that love you prosper.
Coming up, newly released documents suggest a huge breakdown in the war on terror. Was it a failure of communication or something more?
Inside every child is a hero, a leader, a friend to others, someone who helps out, who does the right thing, who dreams of what they can be, but they still need our help.
What should I do? What should I say? How should I feel?
That's where Superbook comes in. It provides moral and spiritual truths through situations children can relate to, teaching God's Word to the children you love. Join the Superbook DVD Club and receive Superbook's newest episodes as they're available, plus 2 copies to share with others, all for your gift of only $25. Get Superbook today and watch the miracles happen.
The head of the FBI says the Khorasan group could still carry out a terrorist attack against the U.S. The Obama administration claimed it disrupted a major plot against U.S. airliners when it destroyed the group's headquarters in Syria. FBI Director James Comey told CBS's 60 Minutes Khorasan may still be planning an attack. Khorasan was working and may still be working on an effort to attack the United States or our allies and looking to do it very, very soon, Comey said. Given our visibility, we know they're serious people bent on destruction, and so we have to act as if it's coming tomorrow. The Khorasan group is part of al-Nusra, which is a Syrian offshoot of al-Qaeda. Al-Nusra is known for its bomb-making capabilities and for seeking international targets.
Recently released internal documents from the Federal Bureau of Investigation show there may have been more breakdowns and a rift among agencies protecting the nation from terror. Judicial Watch obtained the documents under a Freedom of Information Act lawsuit against the FBI. CBN's Mark Martin asked Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton about the revelations in these documents.
First of all, Tom, explain what led your organization to request this information.
Well, we thought something was up with the FBI and Al-Awlaki, his ties to the 9/11 attack. And after he died, we asked for information about Al-Awlaki. And we also had suspicions based on other reports that he was being used as by the FBI or someone in our federal government as an asset. And the information has been astonishing, and the latest batch of documents that has come to us over a course of several years now shows that the FBI was in email contact with Al-Awlaki, refused to help the 9/11 Commission talk to him, and Al-Awlaki was sending the FBI emails complaining about the press he was getting. Why is this guy talking to the FBI? And your viewers should know earlier documents obtained by Judicial Watch show that the FBI had reason to believe he had bought tickets for the 9/11 hijackers. The published report of the 9/11 Commission shows that he was a spiritual advisor to 3 of the hijackers, and they had odd contacts with them, both in San Diego and in Virginia. And also, there was a warrant for his arrest that was pulled as he entered the country and allowed him to enter the country and leave again.
Well, what is your group going to do with all of this information? What do you hope comes from it?
Well, I think we need to publicize it, because my concern is the FBI is yet to be held accountable for withholding this information from the American people, answering questions what exactly they were doing with this known terrorist. Did they tell the president about it before the president ordered his assassination? Remember, Al-Awlaki was the first American to be assassinated directly by a drone and targeted directly by a drone strike for an assassination. Very controversial move by President Obama. There's no doubt he was an al-Qaeda leader, and he was a threat and responsible for murders, inciting and directing conspiracies to kill people. But if he was a government source at one time, was Obama aware of that? You know, frankly, I'm not a big fan of President Obama, but I don't think he would have authorized the strike if he knew what Al-Awlaki's relationship was to the United States government at one time. These are questions that deserve serious answers, because Al-Awlaki is in many ways the godfather of ISIS, in the sense that ISIS took his techniques of internet radicalizing, using the internet to advance the jihad, and have run with them. And as I said, he's, because of his ability to communicate in English, is a terrible, terrible threat to the United States, even after he's been killed, because his writings and exhortations survive on the internet.
All right, very disturbing information. Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton, thanks for your time today, sir.
You're welcome, Mark. And you know, your viewers should go to the internet site judicialwatch.org and look at the materials. It's going to shock a lot of people.
Up next, are you feeling a little groggy today? Did you have trouble waking up? Well, you might want to watch out, because losing sleep is doing more to your body than just making you tired. We'll explain more as we premiere our new series on protecting your health.
Well, certainly there have been times in your life when you pulled an all-nighter. Maybe you stayed out late with friends, or you were kept awake by some nosy neighbors next door, or a crying baby in the next room.
Well, there have been nights when we've sacrificed a few hours of sleep, but when you do that, you're not just setting yourself up to be groggy in the morning, you're also putting your body at risk. Gordon Robertson explains more in the first part of our new series called Protect Your Health.
We've all heard about the importance of getting a good night's sleep. Yet 4 out of 10 people get only 6 hours of sleep or less a night. That doesn't just leave them feeling tired the next day, it's also weakening their immune systems.
Simply put, when we sleep, our bodies repair and restore themselves. Without enough sleep, we become targets for all kinds of sickness.
When individuals are getting less than, let's say, 5 to 6 hours of sleep, it's been found that your pro-inflammatory markers in your blood, so these cytokines that are communicating between different cells, they are elevated. And when some of these pro-inflammatory markers are elevated, you're at a higher risk of developing ultimately other issues.
Like trouble fighting off colds and flu. To prove this point, researchers studied 2 groups of men. One group slept 4 hours a night, and the other slept 8. After 1 week, they compared the blood samples from each group. The men who slept 8 hours a night had twice the flu-fighting antibodies. In other studies, scientists discovered that when we're sleep deprived, our T-cell numbers go down.
You need T cells in your body, absolutely. They're your body's first defense of getting rid of the bugs, germs, bacteria, viruses, fungi, any of those infections that you have. That's your body's first response.
It's one thing to choose sleep deprivation because you're working or playing too much. Insomnia is entirely different. It's trying to get a good 8 hours and failing because of trouble falling asleep, or waking up and not being able to get back to sleep.
If you struggle with insomnia, you may be tempted to reach for a sleeping pill. But doctors say there's some other things you should try first.
Sleeping pills generally have some long-term effects that we're still learning about. There's some, concerns about memory issues that could develop as a result of taking these medicines long-term. And in some instances, they can make the underlying medical condition worse.
So instead of popping a pill, cut back, or better yet, cut out all caffeine.
Caffeine is in all sorts of things, so it doesn't necessarily have to be coffee. It could be tea. Green tea has caffeine in it, maybe not as much as coffee, but your Monster energy drinks, your 5-hour energies, any of these types of things, they do have caffeine in them. Chocolate.
In addition to caffeine, just say no to that nap on the couch.
A lot of people think, oh, I didn't sleep well at night, I'm going to take a nap in the afternoon. Well, that's just reducing your body's drive to want to sleep at nighttime.
At least an hour before bedtime, dim the lights and stop looking at anything that emits light, like the TV or the computer.
Ultimately, when we get stimulated with light, it reduces our body's melatonin production. And we need melatonin to help us fall asleep at night and to maintain sleep during the majority of the nighttime.
Regular exercise will also have you sleeping like a baby.
The exercise has a neurochemical impact in improving your sleep.
Don't eat within a few hours of bedtime, and don't take a shot of alcohol before bed. It will knock you out all right, but it will also wake you up later. When you get ready for bed, make sure your bedroom is dark and cool. Don't pay bills, worry about tomorrow, or argue with your spouse. All these things cause wakefulness. Instead, read a chapter in the Bible. Meditating on Scripture will calm you down, and it's a great way to end the day. One more thing, try to go to bed and wake up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. Your body needs an established rhythm of sleep.
If you've tried everything and you still feel exhausted during the day, you might be one of the millions of Americans who suffer with sleep apnea. It can damage your health, and many people don't even know they have it.
Sleep apnea occurs when your airway closes on and off throughout the night, so you never get the deep restorative sleep you need.
common symptoms of sleep apnea, number one is snoring, loud disruptive snoring. Certainly if there's somebody that tells you that you're choking and gasping and you're actually stopping breathing while sleeping, that's another one. Another symptom is unrefreshing sleep. When you're waking up, and let's say you've allowed yourself 8 hours of sleep, but you wake up and felt like you're hit by a truck, you barely slept at all.
If you think you might have sleep apnea, get tested at a sleep center. Tom Kramer was diagnosed with it 2 years ago. Since then, he's used the CPAP machine every night, and he says he feels like a new man.
I think that just now my immune system, it's much better. I don't get colds or, the sinus infections and so forth like I used to. I don't wake up with a sore throat and a dry throat. That's a big thing too.
The CPAP machine blows a gentle stream of air to prevent the throat from closing so you don't wake up.
I've got more energy. I've lost over 20 pounds just being on the CPAP.
By making some common sense changes, you can get the sleep you need and enjoy a much stronger immune system.
Great advice. Throughout this week, we're going to be showing you more ways that you can protect your health and build a strong immune system. You can watch the Protect Your Health series by going to CBN.com. While you're there, you can also order a free DVD of the series. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Well, finally this hour, Operation Blessing is helping provide safe water for families in Guatemala.
That's right. Families in the village of Alotenango only had access to water for 1 hour each week. But before they could fill their containers, the water would run dry, and there was never enough for everyone. Sonia's family had to use their meager income to buy bottled water. Operation Blessing helped the village set up a system to store the available water in catchment tanks, which is then gravity fed to houses in the village. Now Sonia's family and many others have access to enough water to meet their needs. Praise God for that.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Well, that's it for now on CBN News Today. You can find more of our exclusive coverage of the issues you care most about at cbnnews.com.
Take the time to tell us what you think about the stories you've seen here today. You can do it on Facebook or at CBN News on Twitter. Hope you join us again right here next time. Make it a marvelous Monday, everybody.